And let's start this. I'm super excited. We've been talking about this event for weeks, and this is finally happening. And it's amazing that we can execute these type of activities and see folks joining from all around. So welcome everyone to this event from Openbots, transforming the insurance industry using Zero-License RPA. Good day to everyone from the different time zones you guys are joining, and I am glad I have these three folks with me. My name is Alberto Davila, and I am an automation consultant with Openbots, focused on the insurance vertical. And I have today with me Ali Chaudhry, our Chief Strategy Officer, and Karun Sehgal, our Chief Customer Officer, and Ashish Nangla, our co-founder and CTO. And it's amazingly, these guys are really savvy, and I've learned a lot from them this couple of months, and we've seen some amazing executions, and we're bringing a lot of insights to you today. So welcome again, and this is the agenda for today. Let's work on an introduction. Let's see how we are transforming the insurance with automation and Zero-License RPA, and how we enable the automation. And then the event is scheduled for 1 hour and a half. The last half an hour is going to be for a demonstration for those who decide to see a live demo. So thank you guys, thank you Karun, thank you Ali, thank you Ashish for being with us today. And why don't we start, Ali? Can you talk a bit about Openbots, and then Karun, can you help us give a brief introduction on the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alberto, for the intro, and welcome everyone. So, before we dive into Openbots, I think it's helpful just to step back and think about, the RPA landscape, and more importantly, some of the challenges that companies that are building their automation programs are facing today. RPA was introduced, or it hit mainstream, I should say, a couple years ago, and the vision for RPA was that eventually this technology could be used to automate all of the manual work across your organization. I think it's seen a lot of growth, and it continues to be a very hot industry. There's a lot of productivity that's been gained from RPA, but the vision of automating across the organization has yet to be realized. And part of that is driven by, a couple years into the program, there are some realities that start to emerge. The RPA as a whole actually has a couple of fixed cost components. You've got, a licensing cost to actually, leverage the software. You then have the build out or development cost for setting up the automations. And then I think what a lot of companies are seeing very clearly is that the last piece, the maintenance component, is also in essence a fixed cost, because with RPA, it's interacting at times through the user interface of an application, and so some changes and things can cause bots to kind of break down, and you have to tweak them and fix them. But there's a maintenance component as well, and so I think after a couple years into the RPA program, it becomes very clear that there's 3 fixed costs with our program. And as a result, we're going to be a little bit more tempered with how many automations we actually can attack and achieve and generate some sort of an ROI on. So this is, and we're hearing this. I mean, we speak with, the Fortune the 1,000 companies on a daily basis. We speak with, middle market companies who are launching their automation programs. We speak with, partners who are developing for companies. And so I think this is a very common theme. And so what's starting to emerge now is almost a next generation of RPA, which really it's centered around generating a more scalable alternative to the current model, right? And so I think that's where the market's headed. And so with that in mind, I mean, Openbots when Alberto said the most flexible enterprise RPA platform, part of that is because our focus is really kind of redirecting corporate budgets away from licensing to be better utilized directly in building automations. And so we have a zero license platform that when used on-prem, you can build out as many bots as you want, and there is no bot licensing, no orchestration license, and no developer license. It's truly kind of the freedom to scale and build. But the flexibility, and this bar graph just shows you kind of a rough outline, right? This is licensing and support. We have zero licensing. There's a small support component that is much more scalable. But Alberto, if we can go to the next page. I think understanding the infrastructure is important because this will actually feed into the discussion today about how you can transform your automation, your insurance business using automation. And so when we say flexible platform, what we've done is essentially, if you look at the yellow side of this page, right, the left side, this is all zero cost on premise, right? And when we say on premise, that means either on your own hardware or it could be on your private cloud. Both of those are actually considered on-prem from our standpoint. And what we have is, you've got this Openbot Studio, which is where the actual bot coding and building happens. Then you've got the agents or the virtual machines that run the bots, right? And then finally, you've got Openbot Server, which is equivalent to Orchestrator or Command Center. It's basically managing all of the automations. So this entire stack, when it's on premise, it is zero license, and you can scale to your heart's desire. On the other side, we are also solving for the future of where tech stacks are headed, right? And in talking to CIOs, I would say 5 to 10 years ago, the vast majority of applications were on premise. Now, when you speak to corporate CIOs, the discussion is a little bit different. It's basically whatever we can put in the cloud, we're going to put in the cloud, right? And so we have an entire cloud hosted suite as well of our products. So the cloud servers where you manage everything, what's hosted on our end, it's on a per usage basis. From the cloud server, you can, on demand kind of, spin up and spin down virtual machines and agents. So it's built in elasticity. So the whole point here is that whether you want to invest in your own infrastructure or not, there is a tool set here in this platform that can be leveraged. And there's also the option to go hybrid, which is some application automations are on-prem while others are in the cloud. So it blends down, how much infrastructure spend you have. And then with the zero licensing piece, it truly gives you the most flexibility to kind of build your automation program and scale it up.
This is amazing, Ali. This is great insight, and what I love from Openbots is how we remove the friction, right? So we make it easy for people to start their automation programs, and I would like for Karun to help us getting a bit of feedback or a bit of insights on what the platform looks like.
Sure, Alberto, thank you very much. So this slide that you're seeing here is basically giving you an overview of what the platform looks like, right? So it's a combination of platform and services. But I think the first thing that we need to talk about is, how does an enterprise go about selecting what to automate, and how do they decide what should be automated and what can be automated, right? So that's where we have a tool called Openbots Discovery. This is the tool where you can roll it out to your enterprise. You can have some sort of crowdsourced ideas cataloged in it, and then you can have a different persona in the tool which will help you evaluate these ideas, right, for automation. So it'll give you a series of questions and answers and help you determine what the complexity of the automations are, what is the ease of implementation, and what are the real benefits you're receiving after automating, right? So once you have that questions answered, you would kind of give a score to each and every idea, and that would give you the automation pipeline. So you would want to start automating those ideas which are easy to implement, but start, they give you very good returns, right? So that's a tool which would be used to build your automation pipeline. Again, this is a SaaS-based product. We have it hosted. There is a free tier as well. You can go in and register there and start using it. The second step is to start building the automation. So once you have analyzed your pipeline and you have some sort of documentation available for the process in terms of PDD, which comes from the Openbox discovery tool, you can start building it using the tool called Openbot Studio. So this is meant for your automation development team, and it's basically an IDE which helps you with automating different things like Excel, or you have other application that you're building, or other office tools, or you have Citrix and things like that. But what it basically gives you is a set of commands. Actually, we have more than 500 commands in the tool which you can stitch together to build your automation workflow. It provides all the necessary required capabilities around debugging, managing objects for reusability and things like that, right? So this is your developer tool which you would have for each and every developer to build your automations. Once the automations are developed, then you need to run it, right? So you can run it either in attended mode or you can run it in unattended mode. And that's where our execute component comes in handy, where we call it the Openbots agent. You have this tool which integrates Studio and the server as well. We're going to see that in the demo. But this tool is basically used for running the automation. Not only you can run the OB script, which is a proprietary to us kind of a package, but you can also run other types of automations built in Python or Tag UI and C# scripts and things like that. So that's our execute component. Then third layer that we have is the manage layer, which is basically our server or the orchestration layer. You have two flavors of that, as Ali mentioned. You have the on-prem version and you have the cloud version. Both have similar capabilities, but the main purpose of this tool is to orchestrate all the automations that you have along with all the agents that you have, right? So you can do things like managing versions of the automations. You can run the automations, you can schedule it, you can manage your digital workforce, which is the Openbots agent. You can send automations to different agents. You can get the feedback back. There are capabilities around queuing and assets and things like that as well, right? So that's your manage component. And then these are the three core components that you would use to build your automations. You would build it, you would execute it, and you would manage it. But you can extend the tool, right? So what you see on the right-hand side in the middle are some things that we have developed for extending the tool. One of the main things is Openbox Documents. So this tool is meant to give you the capabilities around intelligent document processing, right? So wherever you have scenarios where there's a lot of paperwork involved, you have scanned documents, you can build that as part of your workflow to extract information from those documents. So the tool allows you to extract information from structured documents, and you can even do unstructured documents. There are capabilities around auto ML which are coming up, but that basically means that the system will have auto learning capabilities as well. And then you also have the human in the loop validation scenarios as well, where some of the documents that don't meet the threshold or the required accuracy, they would, or the confidence score, they would actually go through a human validation. So there's a validation station for that as well. And then you have Openbots Gallery under the extend box. This is where we keep creating new components. All the commands and packages that can be used. There is a team which is dedicated to build new components there, new commands there. And then this is also sort of acting as a marketplace. We're going to soon open it up for external companies to start adding their components as well. So that kind of talks about our stack, which is discover for Openbox discovery for discovering automations, build, execute, manage, and then extending. And then the last layer that you see is the services there. So we wanted to create an enterprise package, right? It's not just tools that you can download and start building. So we wanted to make sure there are enough services to support our customers. And one of the main ones there is the Openbot support group that we have established. So we have our forums. You can go in. There is a team that is constantly looking at those questions. So that's sort of our free support that we provide, and it's very it's a huge database of questions right now. So you can pretty much get most of the questions answered there itself, but then there is a dedicated support that you can subscribe to. There are different plans, but this team is responsible for supporting the customer for platform related issues, or if you have developer support that you need, your developers have questions on best practices or using certain commands, you can open ticket with us. But again, these are paid services, and you can subscribe to certain plans. And again, the next one we have is Openbots partner. Again, we wanted to create a network of engineers who have the capability to do it, and that we do with the help of our partners. There are big companies that we have as part of a partner network. There are close to about there are thousands of people now getting certified. They're taking their certification tests. So we have the capability through our partners, and these are our implementation partners, right? They work with the customers. So we have our expert services as well. We go in, we help our customers, but when it comes to scaling your automations, you would want to start working with a partner. And lastly, we have our Openbots Academy. This is our training platform. We have two flavors of that. The first one is self-paced. So there is an academy you can go in. There are a number of courses there around development, architecture, there's business analysis courses, there's setup and configuration, and then you have the certification tracks as well. So you can actually take those tests and get the certificates from the academy. So that's the self-paced one. The second flavor is we also provide instructor-led training. So if you want to build your team, you want to have your developers, you want to ramp up your developers, you can actually get, subscribe to that training plan that we have, and then we can go in and train your developers as well.
This is great, Karan. Thank you. This is great, and I think this is really valuable, the academy part, because it's important to have the right skills to develop, but it's also important to build awareness and within the company to get people to expose candidates for automation, and that requires skills to be able to detect which processes are right candidates for automate. And I believe from what you explained, I believe that most automation programs fail because they lack those three parts: building the pipeline, and then understanding the correct way to manage it and how to operate. It's not just like you said, download a software, start building automation. It's more than that, right? So this insight is grateful, and I would like you to help us a bit more elaborating on how we can scale this type of practice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if you want to go to the next slide, yeah, thank you. So, we talked about the core platform components. We have the Openbots Studio for developers, server for orchestrating and managing, and the agent for executing. So what you see in the bottom section is sort of a reference, sort of an architecture or a component diagram, which talks about how these platform is used, right? So you got the developer. Okay. So you have the developer machines on the left-hand side. Typically, you would give them a studio, and you would give them an agent. They would use the studio for development, obviously, but then they would need the agent to test and do it during development cycle. They would need that. But then the agent also helps them publish these automations to the server, which is what we have in the middle section of this page. You would typically have one of that server, but you want to create the redundancy around failovers and load balancing and those kind of things. But it's a pretty standard stack. It's built on .NET, uses IIS. It is a SQL Server based database. So extending the tool and creating a redundant server around it is not it's not a lot of work. On the right hand side is what where things become a little interesting. If you use a commercial platform, this is where it becomes difficult to scale your automation environment, right? So each one of these box that you see in this red box is a bot, is an agent. So if you have 100 agents, I mean, with a commercial platform, for example, what you would see is they would typically cost between $8,000 to $10,000 every year, right? So if you have hundreds of those automations, then you can multiply that and you know what your recurring cost would be, right? So that's where we shine. We kind of give you a platform which you can extend, make it scalable at no license cost, right? But this is where you would have multiple automations. Some of these agents would be on users' machines, so they can do attended runs. Some of them would be on virtual machines where you can have have the automation scheduled through the server.
Amazing. This is great. This is great.
Yeah. And lastly, I think this is where what I wanted to talk about from the platform capability standpoint. Even though it is zero-bot license, it is an enterprise grade platform. You have everything that you would see in any commercial platform. It is at feature parity. There's nothing that we are not able to automate. I mean, if it is automatable, we are able to automate it with all the commands that we have. So you can do attended, you can do unattended. There is different types of recorders which are available to help you build the automation. So whether you are doing web automation or you're doing the desktop or Citrix, you can do those things. You can run it on-prem, or you can leverage our cloud environment. We do web automations. There is commands for Windows automation. There is Citrix Surface. You can use APIs. You can integrate with the REST APIs. There is mainframe and terminal. There are other components which require some special handling like SAP. They have their own API-based scripting. So we have commands for that as well. You can pretty much leverage that also. But again, the bottom line there, yeah, but I just wanted to highlight, we just didn't want to leave anything out of the stack. It is a full-featured platform because it's meant for enterprises.
And this is great. I mean, I've seen our people work with systems so legacy that they gotta go with the surface automations for the image recognitions, and whichever system our clients has, it works, right? So it just works, and this is great. But yeah, each customer and each system is specific, and it's its own set of skills to manage it, right? So Ashish, welcome to the party, my friend. Why you don't talk us a bit of what is going on in the industry and what is going on in the environment of automation and a bit of the technology piece.
Absolutely. So it's not just, automation is something that is independent by itself. What we see is, automation is becoming a centerpiece around everything that, industries are doing, especially if you see insurance industry, there's a lot of work around digital transformation and other things happening. And if you look at this slide, and these are some words that are commonly used, or these are the technologies, I would say, that are commonly being used to complete digital transformations. There's the whole API business. There is whole AI and machine learning that is part of that now. And I would say, of course, cloud and AI has been there for a while, and that is something that people have been using it, more so. However, all of these things are now, encapsulated under RPA. There's a bunch of RPA things that have enhanced capabilities to accommodate AI, accommodate APIs and things. So what you should look at this from a point of view of technology is that RPA kind of takes all these technologies and binds them together as a glue, and enables you to do digital transformation. I would say so far, I think with at least the insurance industry, and looking at the legacy systems that are just not going away as easily as possible, RPA is an amazing way to actually automate things and digitize things. You see a lot of work happening in insurance and AI, ML and APIs, but it's not easy. It's not just easy to implement that, even though you may have really good AI and machine learning models or amazing APIs with the newer vendors you have. To implement anything is a one-year cycle. That needs to change, and RPA, I would say, is the thing that will get that to change, and that can get you to do that easily. So that's pretty much my 2 cents about this.
Awesome. And intelligent automation and digital transformation is a journey, right? It's not a destination. And robotic process automation is just the execution arm of those two initiatives or those two journeys, right? And I like this tornado slide because it brings all the technology that is around it, and I like it, and I like how it's evolving and how people is receiving it with it's more open to let in the process automation through robotics, right? To software bots, which back, I don't know, 10 years ago, that was an illusion and people were so afraid and fearing, right? So they were pushing it back out of fear, and now they are accepting it, right? So robotic process automation is the execution arm of intelligent automation and digital transformation journeys, right?
Yeah.
And well, let's talk a little bit about transforming the insurance industry with automation. And we have an interesting opportunity map here where the light green areas is where we find opportunities, but the darker green areas are where the more opportunities, more return on investment, and more revenue generating opportunities are. And when I see this, it's amazing because it brings to my mind all that we're working, right? So right now we're working with claims. For example, we have a customer on the workers' comp area working with fair notice of loss processes, helping them with to manage the risk and to track and enforce compliance, right? So, and we also working with another customer doing the policy management with the submission and intake and generating the policy issuance. And those are processes that take resources, and those are processes that you need money or you need people to make it work, to execute it, right? And through RPA, they are saving and they are scaling their operation. They're saving money and scaling the operations and making it more profitable, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, this slide was intended to have, the opportunities of automation mapped out. So, you can look at this is from our experience. Of course, people have different experiences and some other tools and products may show something differently. But this is what we have noticed with our clients and our experience where, automation has been able to have a deeper impact and a better ROI in that sense. So, of course, other things can be automated. Anything can be automated if that is done in the right way. But where the maximum impact can be, and from an return on investment and savings perspective, this is where people generally look at.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Ashish, that one of the biggest challenges in scaling RPA is companies actually end up purchasing baskets of licenses, right? So you may purchase 10 or 20 licenses. You've got the first 5 of the 10 automations mapped out. You've built it. Now you've got these additional licenses, but you're looking for other areas to automate in. And what we've heard a lot from clients is that they reach out to their divisional teams to ask them what type of workflows they want to automate. And then the problem is there's a disconnect because the folks in the divisional teams may not fully understand RPA technology. So there's an educational component. And so they're not getting the level of detailed, feedback from divisional teams that are required to identify where the next wood, section of wood to chop is, right? Yep. And so I think these heat maps are very helpful for, kind of really throwing out some tangible examples so that, you can mine and properly, identify where all of the solid ROI opportunities are within the insurance industry. And, we work, our partners actually work very closely with clients to kind of run them through discovery processes, and they have an entire framework. But I think these heat maps are kind of like the punchline end result of all of that cumulative experience to say, okay, within a claims department, here is where you should be focusing, right? Within, policy management, this is where you focus. So the pipeline and identifying the right types of automations is a struggle, not just for companies who are starting as first automation, but also those who have purchased licenses, but haven't quite utilized them all.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome, this is great. And we have two interesting use cases to explore. And the first one is the submissions process and scoring, where an insurance company receive a submission from a broker for a submission for a quotation from their whichever system the insurance use, a customer portal or through email. So basically, the automation, the bots receive the request and use a machine learning to score it, right? So a machine learning model to score it, and then basically it denies or approves the request, and then assigns the correct task and assigns the correct resources, right? Ashish, can you help us like explore a bit more on the results on the insurance KPIs, this specific process impacts?
So this is a good example where, you know, the PNC carrier actually gets a lot of submissions from their brokers and agents, and this is you know, way more than they can actually handle. And one of the things that they looked at was absolutely ability to automate the initial part, where a bot can actually read these documents and enter the data into their submission system. So that they can actually take it forward and do all the work. But additionally, one of the things that you know, the bot would do is score the submissions for you know, a propensity of binding or probability of winning in simple terms. But if the propensity of binding is going to be very, very low, you know, then the bot itself can decline the quotes. Which means then the actual people, the underwriters and the techs, are only working on you know, submissions that are really have higher probability of actually binding. So if they're getting way more work than what they have, that this filter out the work and improves their overall revenue. Yep.
Awesome, amazing. So moving to the next one, right? So legal letter processing. Yes, definitely. This is one of my favorites, because I see a lot of claims or insurance company paying on claims because someone didn't answer on time, right? So this bot or this process, what it does is the bot reads the letters, and then put it in the claim system, right? And then assign tasks and resources, so it will be answered in a timely manner.
That's right. That's right. And these documents come in, they're in different formats, and especially these are demand letters from lawyers, so they are meant to be, you know, be difficult to read and understand and things. So the lawyers do a good job in making sure that, you know, the letters don't reach them electronically in a standardized format or anything. You know, some of these are actually snail mailed or postal mailed into the office and stuff. So there's some challenge around it. The bots actually pick up these documents from the scanners and then actually process them, read as much as possible, and make sure that anything that is urgent and important is brought to notice sooner, so that there are no deadlines that are missed, or there's nothing you know, that is not filed. And these are hundreds of documents a day. These are not just, you know, a few documents. These are quite a lot that we dealt with.
Yeah, these are great use cases, and it's really insights. There's a lot of insights and good insights from there. Thank you, guys. Let's move to the third section of this event and this session, and let's talk a little bit about how to enable automations. And I'll ask Ali and Karun to jump in about how you use Openbots to be the core operating system of the automation programs.
All right. Thanks, Alberto. You know, I think when we've basically, when we're characterizing it as the core operating system of automation, it's because we have the zero license model is not just about cost savings, it's also about enablement. It opens up the opportunity to basically pursue very different utilization of the technology, right? So a lot of the commercial vendors are focused solely right now, you know, on kind of, you know, providing the software to corporate so that they can build out automations to reduce costs and improve efficiency, right? Openbots has all the same functionality and can do that as well. So, you know, we've got the corporate channel piece. It also can serve as, you know, kind of a platform on which you can build. So in this case, if you are, you know, selling a certain product, right, whether it's, you know, insurance products or, you know, even a software to your end customer, the end customer has needs after they are getting that data, right? So whether it's, you know, kind of getting data on different, you know, policy type information, or, you know, using your a software solution that you might have, they still have to take that data and then do some manual work with it. And so with the software, you can build a suite of a library of bots or automation solutions that you could then monetize and resell to help address some of those repetitive workflows that the end user has to deal with your product, right? Whether it's, kind of quotes for pricing from underwriting, whether it's, kind of extracting data from a system that you might have. So this is manual work that the customer has. They're using your product, your software. If you then tell them that, hey, we've got this suite of tools that can help you automate XYZ process that you deal with on a daily basis, it's an opportunity to activate a new revenue stream. And so I think, when we talk about enablement, it goes beyond just kind of driving efficiency in your organization. It also allows you to then think about how else can we leverage automation to deliver a better, stickier experience for our end customers, develop something that helps us stand out in terms of our offering, and then most importantly, can activate a new revenue stream.
Yeah, definitely. It's always about the end customer and the experience you give to your end customer, and improving that is going to definitely improve your business, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, this is a quick summary on the distinct, customer profiles or folks that are leveraging the Zero-License platform. And it's a, pretty broad range. We've got, the Fortune 1000, companies who most of them have already invested in some sort of a commercial platform, whether it's UiPath or Blue Prism or Automation Anywhere. And what they end up doing is they look at Openbots as a parallel solution. So it's a multi-vendor strategy where they pull in Openbots and then they build their pipeline of automations on Openbots to blend down their total cost of ownership, right? Because a lot of automation programs, even though they've been at it for a couple of years, they're projected to double in the next 2 to 3 years, and cost is becoming an issue. And so ROI is becoming an issue. And so Openbots is leveraged as a parallel solution for pipeline buildouts, and then some select migration of heavy automations where you could write the code once and switch off multiple licenses. On the other end of the spectrum, we have companies who are just now kind of getting into the automation on the RPA side, and they now have an option with Openbots that did not exist 3, 4, or 5 years ago when the first wave adopters were getting in. And so they use Openbots as the sole solution because it does match the enterprise functionality of the other platforms. And then what they're doing is if you think about the cost that, if you have a 50 bot program, right, that's close to 500,000 in licensing. They're now taking that, massive delta in cost and reinvesting that in either working or funneling budgets towards developing bots, right? Whether it's utilization of development and implementation firms, or in some cases hiring their own in-house teams, right? But basically, it's redistributing the corporate budget away from licensing, which is kind of a rental expense, more towards actual build-outs of automation, which have some sort of an ROI attached to it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with you, and I think this is critical, the correct way to measure the ROI, because sometimes the ROI is not savings, it's how much is this automation is bringing additional revenue in, right? So, or where we can go in and go into the true cost of automation, right? So how much money this actually generates instead of savings, right? So the correct way of measuring that ROI is super important for a successful automation program, right?
Yeah, and I agree with that, Alberto. And I would say that, the biggest trap here with RPA programs is that the first few automations are always ROI positive, right? That's the low-hanging fruit. But when you get deeper into the pipeline, the ROI starts to dwindle, right? And especially if you have the heavy licensing. So I think that's where, removing that friction just makes the whole program more viable. So this is a quick, case study from an insurance client who was, on the verge of signing a deal with one of the larger players. They heard about Openbots. Alberto, I think this is one of your clients, and I know you remember that. But what they ended up doing is they, did a deep technical diligence on our system. But ultimately, I mean, this was our, the client was presenting the solution to their board. And, they were basically saying that it was not just about the cost savings, it's about enablement. They had the flexibility to customize the automation program to suit their needs instead of just purely, budgeting for licensing and development. So they were, and we'll show you what the proposal looks like. So it's very clear, right, what the pricing model is and how that impacts scalability.
And this is interesting, Ali, because the same company, once they went through their proof of value and they're in this incubation phase, they're discovering all those struggles that an automation program might have, and what would have been of that automation program if they will have to pay for licenses. It will be dead already.
Yeah, and so this was, we just touched on this, but I think, Alberto, we could skip this. This was the selection process. Okay, so here's a very customized proposal, right? So this company, they had in-house developers that they wanted to repurpose for RPA, right? So they had a team of 4 developers. They wanted to do a more hands-on instructor-led training session, right? Which is a 3-week program with folks from our training team. That was priced at about $2,500 per developer. They then also, were concerned that they've never launched the RPA, program themselves, and they wanted to make sure they wanted some consulting hours. So this was them asking us if we could provide some, initial consulting. And so we gave them a basket of consulting hours or Openbots expert services for the first 2 months to make sure that they had, they had someone working alongside them to structure everything in the most efficient, scalable manner. And it was, an opportunity for them to leverage expertise and shortcut their learning curve. And then finally, they, purchased the priority support plan, which, was at the $2,000 a month level. It came with 10 tickets per month. And that's, not just product fixes, but also developer guidance. So as they were, looking at new automations and wanted the best practice or how to implement it, they open up a ticket, get some advice, and then get some guidance on how to build it out. So their all-in cost for year 1 was about $48,000, right? And if we go to the next page, they were looking at a 5-bot program, right? Again, they were at the early stages. So they were looking at a 5-bot program with a larger competitor. The licensing for the orchestration and the 5 bots was close to 60 grand with this other, platform. And if you can look at year 1, right, there was a $10,000 training, 14,000 in consulting, 24,000 in support. It's 48,000. But in year 2 and year 3, these one-time, items go away, right? And then it's just support, and then there's real scalability because it's not going up with every automation. And I think what was interesting here is they are the ones who dictated the terms in terms of what do I really need to get started? Let me purchase just those components, and they got to custom tailor their budget, and they still came in well below where they would have been with an alternative enterprise option.
This is awesome. This is amazing.
And I think great. This next page here, this is the most important component of today's presentation. It's not what happens in year 1 when you want to start with 5 bots, right? That pricing, in the case that, what we showed was, the cost of licensing and support. The orange line is a commercial vendor. The black line is, Openbots. In year 1, it's not a huge delta. But what happens when you want to take your program to 10 bots or 25 bots or 50 bots, right? Now you're talking $250,000, $500,000 in recurring licensing expense. When they moved over to the zero license support model, support does not go up with every single automation. There's a certain point where you're going to cross a threshold and we're going to, need to add some more resources to support your account. And then you jump into the enterprise tier and it scales up from there. We also have, some mega cap companies that are doing 500 to 1,000 bots. on Openbots, and their support cost is in a different, it's a customized program at a, much higher level, but it's also millions of dollars per year cheaper than licensing. But on average, what you can see here is that as you scale up your programs, right, from 10 and up, you're looking at an 85 to 90% reduction in the cost of licensing and support. And this entire delta between the orange line and the black line is reinvested into higher yielding automations, right? So you get more automations for the same budget. That was the original vision or the problem in the market that Openbot set out to address.
Yeah, and Ali, I would just like to highlight the chart really does not reflect any development cost, right? So when you get, so this orange line that you're seeing is basically all the bots in production, but many of these commercial platforms, they now charge for the development studio, they charge for development bots just to test your automations. So the cost actually goes up even beyond what you see on the screen, on the chart here.
Yeah, that's right. And this is only looking at licensing and support. There obviously is a development component and maintenance component, but those are the same no matter which platform you use, right? That's using someone's time to develop and maintain. And so those are consistent across both, but when you can eliminate the licensing piece, now you have budget that's freed up to support those other fixed costs.
Great, this is amazing. Well, guys, let's move on to the transition and this getting started. Karun, I think you can help us explore this here.
Sure, I can talk about it. I think we kind of covered it earlier in the insurance case study slide that we had. But typically, I think you have two types of customers, one who have already scaled or one who's working on, they already have RPA built. But there are customers who have not done, any RPA implementation. This is the first time they're doing it, right? So we can have this sort of a framework which is applicable for both. But the way we get engaged with our customers is, we kind of take one small use case and build it with them, but we also assist them, their team to, so what we do is we basically build a pod, right? So we are part of that pod, but we also make sure the developers from that company are part of the pod as well, right? So we go into the planning phase where we would define what that proof of value would look like, take a small or medium use case, complexity use case. But then we also, I think it's important to define the success criteria as well, right? So because we're talking about proof of value here, so you want to make sure you are getting the real value after automation. So you do your due diligence and come up with those metrics before you start doing the work. But then during the planning phase, we would also make sure that we have, we can allocate our instructors and the training team who can work with the developers and then train them, right? So by the time our planning is done, we have defined the proof of value, we've defined the success criteria, we've got the base infrastructure provision. We have a couple of developers from their team already ready to start working on automation, right? So once that is done, we will go into the incubate phase where we can now start doing the development. We will take a primary role, but as the developers, they pick up speed, we'll take a back seat and they can start developing. But then after like a couple of months, they would have 2 to 3 automations in production and they're ready to, you'll see that it's already started to return, give you value. And then the idea would be, our core business is, platform. So we develop platform and we have a product team. We're not in the business of doing professional services. We do provide support. We want to make sure our customers are successful. So during the maintain phase, we would give you platform support. But then you would have to invest in building your automation support team as well, right? Once the automation is in production. But at the same time, once we have this proof of value done, you would have a team which would be ready to start developing new automations. You can start building your pods. You can start leveraging our partner network to expand your teams. But then that's sort of the point where you start working on scaling your automation practice.
This is amazing. Thanks, Karun. Well, I think we've hit the 15 minutes mark, and I want to allow 10 minutes for the Q&A, and then move on to the demonstration with Ashish. Ali, could you help me work on the Q&A, please, and read the questions to us to see what we have there?
Yeah, so I think the first question is about handwritten fields in documents and how it's handled by the bot scan, and just talking a little bit about the precision of the scanning.
Yeah, absolutely. I can take this one up. So we have a tool called Openbox Documents that does all of that. So it'll basically take up documents from a bot, and it's going to process them and do everything that is needed when images are bad, and improve and things. As of course, it has an OCR built in. And there is the whole AI engine to classify documents and extract. So it works with most of the insurance documents in terms of course, the accord forms, which are structured forms, but also unstructured forms in the sense when we were talking about when we were talking about specifically the use case on submission. The submissions, that is the example where we were able to take the accord form, which was the structured document, but the other example where we were talking about the demand letters, that those were lawyer demand letters. Those were not structured documents. Those were unstructured documents. So those are also handled by the system. Handwritten fields, we don't do that anymore. I mean, there is a capability to do that, but we'll have no assurances from our side that whether that will work. That's still that has a lot of quality issues once you start doing that, and that looks like the amount of fixes that people have to make to do that is equal to the effort that people spend retyping the whole thing anyways. So if it's if it's scanned, if it's typed out, or it's a printed thing, it works just fine. Handwritten, I think, is the challenge of the industry. It's not just us. Wherever these challenges occur, that's the same with us as well. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there are more. Please feel free to ask these questions. There's a Q&A section on Zoom. You can go ahead and add those, ask your questions there, and we can absolutely answer that.
We have another one that's asking if Openbot supports working with password protected Word and Excel docs.
Not right now, but that is something that we will absolutely be doing. And that's just a function of security things that we want to make sure that is worked upon.
This is awesome. Thank you, Shish, for that. And wow, I think people can still bring questions up on the Q&A session. And let's move on to the demonstration, Shish. Would you do the honors, please?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Share my screen. I don't know if you guys can see my screen now.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. So this is the Openbots studio. I'm not sure. I'm not able to see what you. Okay, this is the Openbot studio. Essentially, this is the overall project that we have. This is an example that we could look at just to give people an idea of what it takes to write something in Openbots. So think of it as a macro, a large macro, because you're now going across applications and you're going across screens and windows. So it's not just something running inside Excel or inside Word. This is across applications, right? So it has to open up a browser and things. So think of the task management or task execution. People would want to run things either in attended mode or unattended mode. Which what I mean by that is attended is something that is running on the user's desktop while they are working and they want something done very, very quickly. So they'll click on the macro, or the automation in this case, and it'll do a bunch of things and keep it ready for you to work on. On the other side, it could be an unattended bot, which means it runs separately on a machine by itself. And most of the times, those are 24-hour processes that you continuously run, or you can schedule them to do some things on certain times and things. So it's based on what you're looking for. Openbots would support both and can work with that. So simple examples, if you were trying to build something, all you are doing is taking some of these commands that we have ready, like over 500 commands, and then there is the whole package manager will come to. We can use a lot of those. So all you have to do is drag and drop things. And once you drag and drop, you can start looking at the commands, and you can start doing, you can actually start doing things. There are a lot of commands that have been written. These are commands specifically. This is what Excel provides, but beyond that, there's a lot of stuff that we have written, at least on these ones, to make sure it's easy for everybody to manage. There's a whole bunch of data manipulation. So in the example that I was taking, where we were talking about emails, what you're essentially doing, what you can essentially be doing is going to Excel, Outlook, and then probably getting an email. So you would basically get emails, then read the emails. If there is an Excel sheet attached to it, say, let's say, we'll keep a simpler example. You will take the Excel and you're going to open the Excel sheet. Once the Excel is available, you can then go into your, say, policy administration system or a submission system. It depends on what kind of submission system you have. Or whatever policy system you have. If it's a Windows-based applications, like a legacy application, you can work with that as well. If it's a mainframe system, I can show you some of the terminal stuff we have as also. So you could use a terminal and mainframe system. Or if you have a good a browser-based application, you can use one of our two components here. One is the Selenium component. Selenium components are very generic. It lets you handle a whole bunch of browsers. But there is also native integration. We integrate with the Chrome and the Edge directly. So you can actually use some of these things to actually go in and get data and type out data. So you can actually go in and do open browser sessions, as well as open websites and go in and do that. Now, of course, going through websites and going through applications, if you have to start doing every click by click and every text that you're doing manually, you could do that. Otherwise, you could actually use our recorder. So if you can actually go in, you can look at our recorder. And if there is some website or some application that you have, this is just the Openbots website that is opening. And what it'll do essentially after that is simply lets you record activity. Maybe it takes a minute on Zoom. Or I can go to oh, sorry. I can go on a website and actually, yep. For example, this one, I can go in and record. Record will tell you what do you want to use. We support Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, and others as well. So you can use that. Edge and Internet Explorer are interchangeable. You can manage that. Once you have done this, you can go in and say, say any information that you're looking at or any images that you're doing and go through some of that.
I'm looking to buy a fax, Ashish.
So let's go to Openbots and let's see what the results are. And maybe we can go to our Twitter channel, say, for example. So this is something that you want to do, and you can go on the website. But once I have done what I need to do, and type it out or whatever, I'm going to do sequence recording. Is just so it closed the recorder, but what it gave me was like a browser instance. So it's all coded already. So it'll basically give you, this is what you actually landed up doing. So you clicked on something, then you said text. So I was typing that, and then I did a click as well. So it does give you all the commands that you need in a pre-recorded format, and then you can actually go in and change those as well. So that's the easy part. That's part of core part of the tool as well. There is a lot of integrations. We'll go through some of the commands that we have for the server and orchestrator that we use. But essentially, this is the way you would land up developing something. Running this is pretty straightforward. Is basically going to go in and run. Now, I have not given a whole bunch of things to it, so it's going to create a hello world, but then it's going to have a difficult time with this because I have not configured anything on that yet. So it has basically stopped, and there is something that is running. It cannot run, so I've canceled that, and we can come back to the editor. But that's to just show you an example of that is what you could do basically with the studio. Yeah. So it's basically saying that I could not have that object because I did not run it, and I canceled it out as well. Once you have the automation created over here, so first piece is going to the package manager. If you want more components, if these components are not good, not enough for whatever you are writing, you can actually go into the gallery, and you can download all the other things that we have. And for mainframe and other automations, we do have the Open 3270 library. There's also another terminal library for mainframe that uses a terminal emulator to do things. There is SAP automation, there's OCR, there's documents, there's a whole bunch of other things. And if you think that's not good enough, and you want more stuff or some other capability, you can actually go into NuGet.org. You can have NuGet, and you can download any NuGet package, Amazon or Microsoft or anything, or the thousands of packages that are out there. You could use any of that. As long as you can work with any a basic C# package, it should work with you, or .NET package, it should work with you. If these are, again, something that you don't want to use out from external parties, you can host your own NuGet engine, NuGet packages, and you can actually add sources over here and start using them. So you don't have to use any of that. You can download them and keep them locally, and some companies want to do that. Other than that, once you finish with this, you can look at what you have created. There's a script and a project configuration. This is something that you can absolutely use in if we are going to use an OB script, but you can also use for example. So it'll also let you use Python over here, and Python is also integrated within the environment, and the runtime and the agent is capable of running Python scripts as well. It doesn't have to be only Openbot scripts. In fact, if you go into the project, you can actually go in and, let's say, you can actually start with the project, which is a Python project, which can give you, if you have anything pre-built into Python, you can start using Python, and it'll let you have all the configuration around your packages and everything else as well, and arguments and commands. So this way, you will be able to take anything that you have already written into in Python and be able to run it. So that's one of the things. And what you do with these packages, once your developers are done, once you're running and debugging, and you're able to do whatever you want to do and successfully ready to deploy, you would publish the project. What publishing the project would do is take this package and push it onto the server. You can do that directly, or you can do that manually as well by publishing it locally and then taking it to yourself. There are some certificate verifications we do as well. Some companies are sensitive towards what code is running, so developers can sign certain the packages with certificates, so that you can make sure that there's no code running which has not been written by your developers. So that is additional security that is added to this. Okay. Once you have published, and once it can be published, we can actually move into our orchestrator. And of course, you can ask questions about the tool, and we will go in and look at various aspects of this orchestrator, but I will come back to any of the questions if you may have. Orchestrator is a web-based application. Everything that you sent out can be sent out as packages in the orchestrator or the server from your studio. Will land over here in automation. This is the list of all automations we work with. You can create your if you had packages that you had manually exported and not have published it directly to the server, you can manually upload them here. Again, you can define what kind of engine do you want to use, Python or PowerShell or C# script, or simply Openbots. You could do that as well. You have these automations. Next thing you would do with automations is actually ask them to be executed at some point of time. So you want to say this is the automation, and tax calculator automation is my favorite to talk about. You can define if you want to do it one time, or you want to do it recurring, and you want to say you want to do this every Monday and Saturday, or have what time zone and things, and when to start, when to end, and it'll basically run those automations at that time. Very quickly, you can also decide where do you want it to run. So you can go in and say, I want to run this on some machine or virtual machine that you may have. And on the other side, if that's not one machine, you can actually give it a group of machines, and whichever machine is available first in the group, it's going to give the work to that machine. If you want all the machines in that group to take that work at that point of time, you can do that as well. You can do group execution, which means all the machines will get that work, and you can decide that. Other option is to do it manual, which is something that you will come in the system and manually run it every time. And then there is also queues based on queue triggers. So anything that shows up in the queue, there are multiple queues in the system. And once you have a particular queue, you can come in and it'll invoke the automation there. Okay.
Hey, Ashish,
yeah.
We do have another question. We can wait until the end of the demo or handle it now. What do you prefer?
Sure. We can take up a question.
Okay. They're asking if they're able to create tasks like installation and configuration of an application. For example, installing an application like a generic network tool and inputting configurations that follow best practice for company-specific requirements.
Yeah. If the installer is a Windows-based application, you could easily do that. That's nothing that stops you from doing that. If the form is a Windows-based form, you could do that, or a web-based could do that as well. But I'm thinking if you're doing an installation, that's an installer that you may have. So you could actually one of the things you could do is come to assets, upload an asset over here of whatever installer of network tool, whatever network tool you have. You can do a file. You can upload the file here, which is an asset. On the other side, you can actually go in and use some of our commands. I moved out of OpenBots, but I can come back. But one of the things you could do is come in and use that asset to download it from the server and then go ahead and run it. And of course, there's automation, so you can actually do steps, clicking on certain items and running some things. One of the challenges you may have is if there is an administrator permission that is required, then either your session should have already been running in permissions in an administrator mode, which some of the installers may require. But if there is a prompt that shows up, the Windows security prompt to confirm admin requirements, that is difficult to manage because Windows does not let you automatically do that. There's some Windows restrictions around that. But if you are able to run that without the prompts, then you are fine. Again, so we had the schedule. You now know there's assets. Assets could be of different types: JSON structure, a JSON or a number or a text or a file. And that is something that you can use from your studio as well. So over here, if you can, I did not add the package, but yeah, you could add the asset package and you can use that as well. Once you have the assets, you can use those. There is also agents. So now when we were defining the schedule, you were using one of these VMs that we already configured or have them added. But you can add them yourself as well. So you can define which agent, what operating system credentials we want to use, and then any machine account credentials within the system that we should be using. There's also the enhancements of security, which means if you give it a particular IP address and MAC address, it is absolutely going to validate that, which means you cannot. This machine can be the only machine that is represented here, and no other machine can come in and work with it. So it's not just the NetBIOS name or the machine name, it can be further restrictions on that. Machines can be defined that are there, and then there are the agent groups. You can come in and simply define a name of the group and have agents join that. And it's pretty straightforward for you to do that. You can add any number of machines to a particular group, enable the group, disable the group, which means work will be enabled or not. And then there is the whole part where machines can be auto-provisioned. There is a credentials vault, so all your passwords and Active Directory passwords and applications and machine accounts can be stored securely over here. It's all encrypted and hashed, so nobody can actually get them. And when you actually want them on the user on the bot for execution, at least the credentials for you to open applications and credentials for those that need to be used, like Windows credentials, those are done in a very secured way over to the bot, and then that's what is executed. Beyond that, there are these queues. You can define queues, just regular regular queues where you can actually enqueue some work items. But then there are these additional capabilities that queues have for us. One is the retry capability. So when you define a queue, you can actually go into a queue and you can create a queue with a retry count, which means there's some reliability and you can actually go in and execute that. Then when you are adding the queue item, you can actually run the queue. And the queue, when you're running the queue, when you're adding item to the queue, I'm doing this manually, but you're supposed to do this from a bot or an API. You would do that from one bot to enqueuing, and then there is another bot that will be dequeuing. The other part.
This is a dispatcher type of scenario, right? So dispatcher and executor.
That's correct. So there's one bot that will enqueue, it'll look at something and enqueue work for a bot, and then there can be multiple bots that are actually consuming and processing it. So think about it, if there's an invoice and there is a shipping order, for example, and you get a large shipping order, and then you have to process each item in the shipment and then be able to give it out to, say, different parties that you're going to do. You can create one work item for the invoice that gets, or the shipping or the order. Then you break it down and you send multiple items over to another queue, and each bot can then go and in parallel process each shipping. So this way you can have really good way to expand.
We have other two questions. The
Sure.
first one is, can we trigger the bot in an attended bot mode when a file is placed in a folder or email is received?
So the bot needs to be running to be able to read for that. It's not the triggers don't just run automatically. There needs to be something that is listening. So yes, you can actually create a bot that is listening on the side, running on the side, but then that's the only bot that will run on the side. And then as soon as it picks up something, if it's monitoring a file or it's monitoring a folder or an email, you can actually take that up and do something with it.
So you will use something like this dispatcher and executor. So the dispatcher will be listening for the file or email, and then once you receive it, it will go back to the attended bot.
That's right. Typically attended bots are not really used for listening into things because they're consuming resources of the user's desktop. So they're typically set outside. And that's why you have bots, unattended bots that are listening into such things. That's a typical reason why things are done. And also the fact that what happens when the user logs out and things like that, right? Those are typical issues.
The other question we have is, can Openbots agent operate on Linux systems? If so, can a remote agent connect to Linux systems via SSH and trigger the Linux agent?
No. So today we don't run on Linux, mainly because we hardly have any customers who have RPA requirements on Linux. However, we do allow you to run shell scripts. We do allow you to run terminal scripts and outside. We also recently we did this for a client where we were able to run things on Windows under Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL, and that works fine as well. However, the agent was not built to run on Linux remotely as a service. It's not a daemon that will run on Linux machines.
Awesome.
Okay, yeah. A lot of other things, like, for example, emails are part of our orchestrator. If you're able to see my screen, you can actually go in and define emails or the email accounts here itself, and not having to configure emails on every machine. And you can use this to send and receive emails as well. You can use this to send emails for sure as of now, so that we can log everything that is going out of the system and the environment as such, and not every bot is going in and sending out emails from everything. You can still do that. You can still use SMTP and you can still use Outlook and send out emails. But essentially what this system does is if you want control, you can actually let people use the server to send out emails so that you have more control and more logging of who's sending what, and there's some traceability around it and control around compliance requirements around where you can send emails, where you cannot send emails, and those things. There's integration. There's the whole concept of system events and business events. System events, essentially what it does is whenever there is something in the system that happens in the system, you can subscribe to those. You can go in and say, okay, whenever an automation is updated or deleted, I want to know and I want to do something about it. And I want to basically get an HTTP call, or I want to get an email, and or I want to get a work item into the queue, and you can take that up.
We have another question, Ashish. Can we export the list of items in the queue which are pending to be executed or fail?
So there is a command line for that. We do have that. There is no screen to do that, but there is a command line to do that. Once you use the command line, you can export the queue items. You can requeue those queue items, as well as you can actually create a template queue item and then create queue items based on that as well. Those are some command line things that are available, but there's no UI for it because there's enough security implications around how people are able to extract whole set of things together and things.
Okay, we have another question. How scalable is a deployment without Openbot server?
Sorry. So in terms of scalability, Openbots is based on a very standard stack. It's a web application. It requires a standard web server and a database. It basically scales with how generally a web application scales, very out of the box. So if you have a load balancer, if you have some kind of a distributed network environment, it absolutely works on that. You can do an active deployment. You can do an active passive deployment. You can do a multi-region deployment with it. And you can partition data as well. So you can say one department does this and one department does that, and have different databases up in the backend. The scalability is also based on number of agents that can connect. There's no licensing around it, so we absolutely have hundreds of agents. In fact, maybe this configuration itself has a couple of 109 agents that we have set up on it. So there's nothing that stops people from connecting agents and defining agents and running. And some of them are connected, some of them are not, based on how you can do that. The other part is on the database and logging side, there is enough flexibility available for you to be able to call some of that as well.
Okay. I have another one for you. Can Openbots agents be triggered via API endpoints?
Yeah, there is an okay, I just disabled it on that, but yes, there is one. There is an API to do that. It's called Run Now. You can do that, or you can actually schedule something as well for a future date to run. So you can do both. You can run something right now, and there's this Run Now button. It calls an API. The same API can be called by anybody. So we are absolutely an API first development tool, which means everything that you see on this UI or everything that you see on this application is through an API, and you can use that API directly as well.
Okay, I have another one. You guys mentioned during the presentation human in the loop. Can you show a brief example or talk about how it will work?
Sure, we can look at the documents. So I'll not be demoing that today because it's just too much to do in a demo. But there are videos of this, the whole validation station and human in the loop station on YouTube. If you reach out to us, we can send you a link and exactly what time of the whole video that appears, so that you're not watching a 2-hour video. But we can do that for you as well. But that's part of the Openbots documents, where bots are submitting documents, and then eventually everything gets classified and extracted. And then there is a bot that there's a validation station where humans can actually go in and work on. And then once the document is validated and the task is complete, it's given a human task is complete, then a bot can actually take over. So there's a queuing system there as well. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of features. I mean, on the website, there are multiple videos of each feature. there is there's a features section. There is there are other webinars where we have done deep dives. There are bot examples of building bots within the system so that we can do that very easily. So a lot of examples available, and that is something that you can easily use. Or if there is also the academy. Karan mentioned that earlier. You can actually go in and do a quick course on that for a few hours, and you should be able to start operating and automating things very easily. The tool is available for you to download on the website, and that shouldn't stop you from that should really encourage you, I would say, to go and download the tool and start using it.
This is amazing. Thank you so much, Ashish, for all this demonstration. And I hope we have answered all the questions that the crowd threw at us. And Ali, thank you so much. Karun, thank you so much for this insightful session. And I think we are coming to an end, so let's wrap it up. If you need additional information, you can contact any of us. And Ashish, please do the honors. Where or how can we find more support?
Absolutely. So everybody can go on openbots.ai website. There is the entire the download of the tool. There is also the entire forum for you to ask questions if there is anything, or there is a contact us to reach out to us. And if there is a demo that you would want for your organization specifically, and then see how Openbots fits your organization, you could request a demo on the homepage itself, and we will contact you.
Amazing. Ali, the closing line is yours.
Yeah, I think just want to thank everyone for attending. And this again, it's the next generation of RPA is solely focused around the functionality has to be there, right? That's a given. But the next generation is going to be focused around ROI and scalability, because why would you automate to gain efficiency if you have to pay such heavy costs to get there, right? It kind of negates the whole mission. So I think the solutions that are going to dominate the market and the offerings are going to be centered around scalability. And so I think these are just some of the tools that can help you accomplish that. So look forward to interacting and meeting you directly.
Awesome. Thank you, Karun. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Ashish. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.